Okay, so I know this has been talked about to death thanks to us having nearly a 10-year gap between Arkham games releasing, but I want to give my take on what I think the next Arkham game should be like. And yes, I said games, plural, because WB is so likely to lean just heavily into the Arkham franchise, not just Arkham, but Batman as a whole, as it's one of the few properties that they own that's just proven to make money outside of, like, Harry Potter. For starters, we've all heard the rumors of Rocksteady remaking Batman Arkham Asylum, but this honestly doesn't seem all that fun to speculate about, not just due to my constantly dwindling faith in modern Rocksteady, but also because we all know Arkham Asylum like the back of our hands, and I just don't see what they could add to the game without expanding it drastically. I mean, if they wanted to add new gadgets to a contradicting canon, they'd have to pay attention to Arkham Origins Blackgate, Arkham Shadow, Arkham Asylum proper, Arkham City Lockdown, Arkham Knight, and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, rather than being able to just come up with creative new ideas. And that's not even comparing to the other non-canon Arkham video games, like Arkham Underworld, Arkham Origins Mobile. Does that even have new gadgets? I don't fucking know. Like, what would they do if they wanted to add basically any new content? Would they expand the asylum and change the map? Would they expand outwards to Gotham? Both of those seem incredibly weird, and like, I'm not into that. If all they're gonna do is just update the graphics, then I don't really care. We already got Return to Arkham, and there's already a trillion graphics mods on PC. I guess console players would probably be happy, but like, dude, you can already play Arkham Asylum on your PS5. Why would I want a remaster of it or a remake? But what could, like, that's what I'm saying. What could they even add to a remake of Asylum? They could make it so that you could pivot on the line launcher. They could add dive bombing. That'd feel really weird. I guess they could add like beatdowns, like more traditional beatdowns. That'd be cool. I don't know. There's like small amounts of stuff, I guess, but it's not that fun to talk about, right? It's just make Arkham Asylum a little bit more like Arkham City. I mean, if they were gonna remake all the games and set them into one package, I might lose my shit. That's been my dream for years. If they were like, hey, you can play them in order. You can play Asylum, and then you can play City, and then you can play Night, and then like maybe you get Origins as like a one-off DLC thing. But I don't know. I've always dreamed of them putting all of the Arkham maps in one map. That's been my dream for years. I would love it if they did that. But I don't think this is what's going to happen. I think they're just remaking Arkham Asylum. But what the fuck do I know? I only know what you guys know thanks to leaks and all that good stuff. I think WB personally, I think they hate me. But their hatred, or possible hatred, is not going to stop me from suggesting new things for them to do. Whether they take these ideas or throw them away and say that I'm a fake fan and I don't know what I want from the franchise is totally up to them. Speaking of things that WB seems to despise, I get that they don't want to go near the Batman Beyond era with a 39.5-foot pole for whatever reason, seeing as they canned the Damian Wayne Batman Arkhamverse game and never even bothered with the Batman Beyond animated movie, which was pitched by the folks who made Spider-Verse, and which I will never forgive WB for. But if we're going to continue with the Arkhamverse, I just don't see a way that Rocksteady could make games in the same era as Camouflage, who I think need to make another Arkham game. They just have to. They proved that they can do it fantastically, and we'll get to that after this, but I want to pitch what Rocksteady should actually be making instead of just an Arkham Asylum retexture, because dear God, we got that back in 2016 and it was so mid. We don't need another one. We don't even need a remake, because why would we need a remake? What the fuck are you going to add to it? I also don't think that Rocksteady could keep going in the post-Arkham Knight era, because either it ruins the ending of Knight or it just starts conflicting with Suicide Squad, and we just don't want to talk about Suicide Squad. This is especially true if the two studios that are making the games in the same universe don't communicate, which was exactly the case when Suicide Squad and Arkham Shadow were in production, as neither had any idea that they were making an incredibly similar boss fight with Fear Tox and Batman. Those fights were so brutally similar, and they were both cool in their own rights, but dog, if this lack of communication stands up and we are going to continue with the Arkhamverse, there's going to be some massive problems. Despite all that, I do think that this game has to be canon to the Arkhamverse, at least this one last time. I mean, Gotham Knights showed that people just don't want Batman-esque games, they want Batman games, and they kind of even want continuations on the Arkhamverse with the familiar mechanics and gameplay. I think another takeaway from Gotham Knights is that people actually like Batman. Who would have thought? Not even Bruce Wayne, and definitely not his sidekicks, but they like Batman. I've been pretty obsessed with Val Kilmer's Batman Forever recently, and I remember he was talking in an old interview about how some people came to the set and he got disappointed that they were not as interested in him and him in the costume as they were the Batcave and the Batmobile and the set and all that good stuff. And it makes sense. He said that he realized at that moment that Batman was a character that you project yourself onto. Do you like projecting yourself onto Robin? Or, I mean, okay, I guess Nightwing and Red Hood and Batgirl have more fans than probably Robin. Robin has been kind of shit on in mainstream pop culture for the past however long, but yeah, there's still a lot of Robin fans, don't get me wrong, but there's just nowhere near as many of those people's fans as there are Batman fans, right? Anywho, it just makes sense for Rocksteady, if they're going to have this lack of communication with Camouflage, to work in the future while Camouflage works in the prequel era, because then they won't have to have this weird, janky, possible need to retcon shit and possible grossness. There's plenty of room in between, or even Shadow and Asylum, for Rocksteady to reference or come up with some events that took place in between those games, and for Camouflage to still not really have to worry about the events that take place afterwards most of the time. Though I think making these studios communicate would be great. I'm a massive Star Wars fan, and for years there was someone named Pablo Hidalgo who was just incredibly involved in the canon of the Star Wars universe and making sure everything was cohesive and coherent and didn't have any crazy amounts of confusion. I think if the Arkhamverse had someone like that could keep track of the lore, even though it's completely and utterly messed up and has been for years, I think that would be a great idea. Anywho, I know that Damian was gonna be the Batman in the WB Montreal, whatever that was back in the day that was in the Arkhamverse, but I personally hate Damian as a character. I've just never found an interpretation of him that I like, so I prefer Terry McGinnis being Batman in this game, I'm going to be honest with you. I think Terry is just far more relatable than Damian, and I think in some instances he's even more relatable than Bruce Wayne. I mean, he's just a kid from the streets, and Bruce is a dude with limitless wealth who uses that wealth to train himself until he's in peak physical condition and go out and fight crime with his bare fists. Plus, I think the Batman Beyond era is just excruciatingly interesting and unexplored. It would open the door to immense creative freedom, like new outlandish gadgets, and maybe even giving Batman the power of flight instead of just his regular gliding traversal. Maybe through the game, the Batsuit's flight systems are fixed, but maybe they're limited in some capacity, kind of like the Batmobile's Afterburner, so that we don't completely ditch the traversal from the other Arkham games, and instead just adding more freedom to it. Now, when it comes to the new gadgets, speaking of which, do we bring back the Batmobile in the Batman Beyond game? I mean, if we do, it has to see much less use than it did in Night. Not to mention that in Batman Beyond, the Batmobile can also kind of fly, meaning that, like Night, it would probably become a default form of long-form transportation for the players rather than using Batman's gliding and grappling traversals. Either way, I think I would get rid of Batmobile combat entirely, but using it for puzzles was a very fun addition to Night, and one that I would keep assuming the Batmobile returns in the Beyond game. It's either that, or not have it in the game at all, which seems weird, or just use it as like fast travel, a la Arkham Origins with the Batwing, which seems kind of lame. Now, I don't know about who would be playing Terry McGinnis or any of that. I'd leave that to someone who's like way better at casting people than I am. But you already have a great Batman, right? Please use Roger Craig Smith as Bruce Wayne. Please. If you cast literally anybody else as Batman after bringing him back for Arkham Shadow and him proving that he's a fantastic Batman, he's so good in the role, I might have to check myself into an actual Alsum. Please don't make me do this. As for the actual story of the game, I really don't know that I even want to pitch that. There's plenty of stuff they could go through, from taking events from the Arkhamverse, or just the overall Batman canon, or the numerous episodes from Batman Beyond, the Justice League show that tied in with Batman Beyond. Batman the Animated Series has tons of iconic villains that they could make the game about. I mean, obviously it's the Arkham game, so there's going to be a trillion villains in the game in general, but I think there's a ton of variety. I think there's even more variety than there was in the Arkham games, because you can take any Batman villain that's ever existed, except maybe the Joker because he's dead, and That's pretty much. I mean, you could take anybody else. You could make the return of Scarecrow. He's finally not lobotomized or whatever after he took in so much of his own fear gas. He finally remembered how to exist, and he's like, ah, yes, the symbol of the Batman. I must destroy it. I mean, you could do anything. You could do the Return of the Joker. There's so much you could do. Although, speaking of Return of the Joker, you totally could change the plot twist of Return of the Joker entirely, where Joker was Tim Drake, and instead of it being Tim Drake, it could be the remnants of Joker's blood and Bruce. Oh shit! Am I cooking right now? Okay, well, I think I might be cooking. I have another idea that's just come to mind. Since WB is just excruciatingly frightened to put anyone in the cowl outside of Bruce, they could do some sort of like dual narrative where some of the missions, or maybe even the entire game, let the player bounce back and forth from being Bruce's Batman in a modern era to Terry being Batman in the futuristic era. I mean, I'm sure there'd be an interesting balancing act between the time spent in both eras, kind of like how Camouflage had to balance the time you were playing as Matches Malone and playing as Batman in Arkham Shadow. But assuming it's done correctly, I think it would be a fantastic way to test the audience's reception to somebody else donning the cowl. Depending on which era of the Arkhamverse modern Bruce's missions are set in, it could explore the formation of the Justice League, or even the aftermath of Suicide Squad, assuming it's even canon anymore. Plus, I think this would be a fantastic way to tie into the Justice League episode where Bruce meets his future self alongside Terry. Not to mention that the twist of that episode would be a fantastic way to bring their stories both together and tie it up. Like, imagine you've got past Batman and you've got, like, Terry McGinnis teaming up to take on future Batman, who's now the Joker, too. That'd be crazy. That's some crazy sci-fi shit, but But I mean, if we're going into the Batman Beyond era and we're staying in the Arkhamverse that is canon with Suicide Squad, we may as well lean hella into the sci-fi stuff. It's not like the universe hasn't already with Arkham Knight and all of the gadgets and technology that Batman has. I mean, shit, what if it's Scarecrow that makes future Batman become the Joker? He fear toxins Bruce Wayne, and suddenly all of his fears of Joker from Arkham Knight come back. And then, depending on which era of Batman we're in, if it's post-Arkham Knight and pre-Suicide Squad, it could even retcon Suicide Squad, which would be huge. Fuck it. I think it'd be cool if they recreated the opening of Batman Beyond 2. I want to see Bruce in the Batman Beyond suit, and I want to see the player ending up in a combat encounter that they're forced to lose to show that Bruce's body isn't fit to be Batman anymore. Maybe this is where the flight systems are broken. I don't know about actually making the player lose the encounter. Maybe they would just end up in a cutscene where Bruce ends up forcing himself to use a gun like he did in Batman Beyond just to scare off a criminal and realizing that he just can't be Batman anymore, something like that. Because making a player lose a fight seems like a bit much, especially in the beginning of the game in the probable tutorial section. That doesn't seem intuitive. I feel like someone would probably like restart from checkpoint like 6 times and be like, why the hell am I losing? What am I doing wrong? Honestly, even if Suicide Squad was canon, I can't imagine myself being all that mad. In the grand scheme of the Arkhamverse, it's nothing. It's a nothing burger of a game. Nothing happens. And I mean, it would probably barely get referenced thanks to the Batman Beyond game being so far in the future. Not to mention that the game has so few repercussions in the overall Arkhamverse. I mean, the entire Justice League fucking dies and then comes back like it's nothing. Did Wonder Woman come back? I don't think she came back. I don't remember. I repressed that entire game. Now, I could see this being a way to reset the canon, as the Arkhamverse is not only getting old, but it's also getting bloated with the amount of stories that have been told. I mean, whether in the games that I just mentioned above, the comics, all of the tie-in comics. Oh my god. There's Arkham Asylum tie-in comics. There's Arkham City tie-in comics. I think there's one Arkham Origins tie-in comic that's a fucking choose-your-own-adventure book. There's Arkham Knight comics. None of those are canon, by the way. None of those make any fucking sense in the canon, especially not anymore. Like, Deadshot was Deadshot, and then Deadshot was Clayface, and then Deadshot was Black? I'm so confused. One of my favorite events to bring up is when Joker, post his own death, blew up Arkham Mansion, but obviously that can't happen because an Arkham Knight Scarecrow, like, goes there for the end of the game. But what's funny is that the beginning of the comic where Joker contradicts the ending of Arkham Knight seems to have like directly inspired the beginning of Arkham Knight with Joker being cremated. It's really confusing. So like this comic directly inspired Arkham Knight, but then they also directly just contradicted it. dear God, there's so much lore, all the in-game bios and the audio recordings, and not to mention all the times that these stories have been retconned. I mean, it's just gonna get harder to keep track of as the time goes on. I mean, the folks behind Arkham Shadow experienced this firsthand when they were trying to expand upon the lore of Cyrus Pinckney and needed to include in-game retcons relating to the character's age because they messed it up. And at that point, I can't even blame them. I mean, I've been playing the Arkham games for 10 years and I've 100%ed all of them, and I barely even remember who the fuck Cyrus Pinckney is outside of being the dude who the museum is named after in Arkham City. I can't imagine this feels very freeing as a storyteller. It doesn't feel very inspiring. I mean, I guess I could see that on one hand, when you're narratively writing yourself into a corner, kind of, it can be kind of engaging because you have to come up with a way to eliminate the logical break in the story. But God, like, you're limited so much. Every single thing you want to do, you have to look and see if there was ever anything that messes with that in the future. They did such a good job at showing that they could do it, but do I need them to do it again? All this talk about Arkham Shadow made me hungry for a new VR game, not gonna lie. Because yes, I need a new VR Arkham game from Camouflage, and I'm so tired of pretending that I don't. Dude, I never thought I was gonna like Arkham Shadow. I thought I was gonna fucking hate it. Like, I went into it with an open mind, because obviously I wasn't just gonna go in and blindly hate it. But I when I saw the trailers, like, you tell me we're gonna get a new Arkham game and you're gonna limit it to, like, a tenth of the player base, if not less, is so sad. But then the game was so good. I already made a video on that. I'll link it in the description. You should go watch it after you're finished watching this one. But for starters, I don't even know that I care about the story with this one either. Camouflage proved that they could not only create a cohesive but engaging narrative revolving around numerous villains. I mean, Shadow had Two-Face, Harley Quinn, Scarecrow, Ratcatcher, Carmine Falcone, and Joe Chill. Oh, that's a lot of villains to balance, and those are only the main ones. Joker was there, Black Mask was there. Who else was there? A lot of people were there. When it comes to gameplay mechanics, I think one of the big things is that I want more gadgets. I really want the line launcher. I just really want the line launcher in VR. Back in the day, I would just imagine how much more efficiently I could travel in real life with the line launcher, and the closest I'll ever get to that is in VR, so I kind of need it. Have y'all ever heard of the Tetris effect? It's where people would back in the day play so much Tetris that they would see it in real life. They'd like go to sleep and they'd be dreaming about playing Tetris and they'd see it on their back of their eyelids and shit. That's me with the line launcher, I'm not gonna lie. I think having multiple characters in VR would also be sick now that they're not gonna have to focus on teaching us how to play the game as much. They can focus on expanding on what they've created. Like the explosive gel people that they were gonna add. That was such a cool sounding enemy type, but they just felt like they had too much to teach us. Please include that in the sequel. Please include more gadgets, obviously. Please include more playable characters, because we've already learned how to play the game. That would give you more ability to change the gadgets. Like, we already have the Bat Claw. Just make that into a zip kick and then give us Robin. That's free real estate, right? Catwoman, she'd function a lot differently. You'd have to reskin some stuff, but it'd be cool. It'd be so cool to be able to play as Catwoman and have a completely different moveset while using the same VR mechanics. Speaking of new gadgets, would we want the Batmobile in VR? I mean, there are plenty of VR games about driving, so maybe it could use the more traditional Batmobile from Asylum without battle mode? I mean, the Batmobile wouldn't have it at that point anyway, but at that point, would we just want to fast travel? Where would driving even make sense? Would they set it in the Arkham Knight map? That seems a bit much. That seems really big for VR, but I don't know. I'm not a developer. I don't know what the MetaQuest 3 or 4 or whatever can handle. I kind of think this game should probably be in the Arkhamverse too, but I kind of don't care. It doesn't matter as much. As much as I love the Arkhamverse, the mechanics are what matter. For the love of everything holy, I really hope WB learned that after the failure of Gotham Knights. I feel like you could even go about it in a weird way and just pretend that Shadow and maybe even Origins are canon, but they did a great job of keeping everything intact from those games, so I guess it wouldn't suck if they continued to try to keep it in the Arkhamverse if they think they can do it. I just don't see a need for them to keep stressing themselves out about it when they've already shown that they've got the gameplay and the storytelling prowess, like, honestly better than Rocksteady ever did. Although that is kind of an unfair take, because Rocksteady is the OG. They made everything Arkham, and Camouflage just converted it over to VR fantastically. So it's not like story was ever as big of a focus for Rocksteady, I'm sure. Yeah, when it comes to the Camouflage game, I have a couple of things that of course I would love to see, but they've just shown time and time again, well, maybe not time and time again, but with this one game that I should have an incredible amount of faith in them, and if they have ideas for a sequel, then I should shut the hell up and they should do whatever they want to do because I think they're going to do fantastic things in the future. I have nothing but faith for them at this point. Anywho, I think that was my yap session about my pitch for the next Arkham games. What do you guys want to see from the next Arkham games? Leave some ideas in the comments below. Let me know if you disagree with anything that I said. I'm very interested to see if people disagree with the idea of rebooting the universe. I want to see what people think about that. Like and subscribe too. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's it. Okay, bye.